Okay, so what we need to learn right now is this little thing called the midpoint formula. The midpoint formula ties in directly to the things we've been doing in the class for the last few days, specifically finding the midpoint either with our compass and straight edge or applying the midpoint ideas, the fact that it cuts a segment exactly in half to find the missing measures, either the parts of the segment or the segment itself. We also did a proof yesterday in which we used the concept of a midpoint and the fact that it cuts it in half to help finding missing measures in proof format. This goes along the same lines. Basically, we're taking our segment and we're plopping it in a coordinate plane, and then we're using the coordinates of the endpoints to calculate the coordinates of the midpoint. So we're actually finding the coordinates of the midpoint through algebra rather than through our geometric manipulations or anything like that. Okay. It's pretty simple. If you've ever used the slope formula or the distance formula, it's very much the same. You're given point x1, y1, and x2, y2, okay, or point 1 and point 2 with x coordinates x1, y1, or coordinates x1, y1, and coordinates x2, y2. You plug those four coordinates into what we call the midpoint formula, and then it's just going to spit out the midpoint or the coordinates of the midpoint of the segment. Okay, for instance, in this one, here's point x1, y1, and x2, y2. Again, if you do it the other way around, and this is x2, y2, and x1, y1, it doesn't matter because you're just going to end up adding in order. Doesn't matter. You can actually do this algebraic or geometrically if you wanted to. I have a graph here, so real quick, just take a moment to draw some axes like this. This looks too high, but that's right. That's crooked, but that's okay. Negative 1, 5, or negative 5 is right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 3 is right here. So this is actually the segment that I'm talking about. Right here. And if you draw it in, looking at the middle, I think this is going to be the middle right there. So that's one way to do it graphically. The coordinates at that point are 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I would expect to see a 2, negative 4 pop out of the midpoint point. Okay? But, of course, you don't always have a graph, and you don't always want to graph it, so an algebraic approach might be more appropriate. In this case, if we call this one x1, y1, and this one x2, y2, then the midpoint formula is simply going to be x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. Okay, it's important to realize that there's actually two formulas in here. This is an ordered pair. This is the x-coordinate of the midpoint. This is the y-coordinate of the midpoint. So you end up with, in this case, x1 plus x2 is going to be negative 1 plus 5 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 is negative 5 plus, be careful, negative 3 over 2. Okay, I haven't done any math yet. I just need to simplify. All I've done is plug stuff in. When you do simplify, do them one at a time. Negative 1 plus 5 is, well, 4. Negative 5 plus negative 3 is negative 8. Divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is, of course, 2. And negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Okay, and then you see that algebraically, we actually get the same midpoints that we, or the coordinates that we did graphically. Okay, pretty simple process. Let's do another one real quick. I'm going to switch markers real quick. So here's going to be negative 6, 10, and 10, 8. Let's call this one x1, y1, and this one x2, y2. If that's the case, then the midpoint is going to be equal to x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1, 1 plus y2 over 2. In this case, that's going to be negative 6 plus 10 over 2, comma, 10 plus 8 over 2. Okay? Simplifying, you end up with a negative 6 plus 10 is 4 over 2, comma, 10 plus 8 is 18 over 2, which is actually going to be the coordinates 2, and those are the coordinates that we need. Okay, questions? That's what you could ask. Why don't you guys try number 3 real quick? Just pause the video, do it by yourself. See if you can get the right answer. If you didn't pause, I'm going to keep going. Ready? x1, y1, x2, y2. 2. N is equal to x1 plus x2 over 2, comma y1 plus y2 over 2. In this case, that's going to be 5 plus negative 6 over 2, negative 9 plus 3 over 2. Just plugging stuff in. Simplifying, 5 plus negative 6 is actually going to be negative 1. Negative 9 plus 3 is actually going to be negative 6, I believe. Okay. In this case, this one doesn't reduce, which is actually not uncommon. You're left with negative 1/2, and negative 3. And those are the coordinates you need. Alright, if you didn't get that, you're welcome to rewind the video. But there's one more thing that we do need to look at, and that's problems that look like this. The difference between these problems and the problems that we just did is they don't give you the coordinates of the midpoint and actually define, or the endpoints and actually find the coordinates of the midpoint. They actually give you one of the endpoints, then they give you the midpoint, and then they're asked to find the other endpoint. Given the coordinates of the endpoint and the midpoint of a segment, find the coordinates of the other endpoint. So basically, you know this one, you know it goes somewhere, you know the midpoint, and you're supposed to find the coordinates of the other endpoint, which is way over here. Okay, this is a little bit different. We're going to use the same formula, but we're going to use it in kind of a different way. Remember, the formula for the midpoint is going to be x1 plus x2 over 2, comma y1 plus y2 over 2. Remember I said earlier that there's really two formulas in here. One is for the x-coordinate of the midpoint, the other is for the y-coordinate of the midpoint. So what we could do is we can actually split this up into two things. We can say that x sub m, which is the x-coordinate of the midpoint, is equal to x1 plus x2 over 2. And we can say that y sub m, which is the y-coordinate of the midpoint, is equal to y1 plus y2 over 2. Okay. The benefit of separating them out is now we can work on each one separately. Okay, let's take for instance this one. If x sub m is equal to x1 plus x2 over 2, and I'm given the coordinates of one of the endpoints, this would be x1, y1. This is the coordinates of the midpoint, so that's xm, yn. So then this becomes 1 from right here is equal to negative 3 plus x2 over 2. x2 in this case is my unknown. That's the x-coordinate of my missing endpoint over here. So now I need to solve for x, which takes some algebra, but it's nothing that we should not be able to do. Let's multiply by 2 on both sides to fill this guy. And you end up with 2 is equal to negative 3 plus x2. Add 3 to both sides. And we get 5 is equal to x2. Okay, or using our beloved symmetric property, x2 is equal to. Okay, you're not done yet though, that's just the x-coordinate. So I have the x-coordinate of point B, but I still need to find the y-coordinate. So you just do the same thing. Y sub n is equal to y1 plus y2 over 2. Okay, I know that the midpoint, the y-coordinate of the midpoint is 4. The y-coordinate of my other endpoint is negative 6. The y-coordinate of the second endpoint is something I'm looking for. Okay, it's the same equation, so it's solved the same way. Multiply, die, multiply. 8 is equal to negative 6 plus y2. Add 6, 6. 14 is equal to y2, or y2. Okay, so the coordinates in the end are simply x comma y, 5 comma 4. Okay. Okay, why don't you pause and try number 5 real quick, see if you can get it right. I'm going to move on. Okay, x1, y1, x sub n, y sub n. These are the coordinates of my first point. These are the coordinates of my midpoint. I'm looking for the coordinates of my second endpoint, which is B. Okay, that's where
David, can you pronounce it?
X sub m is equal to x1 plus x2 over 2.
Wonderful. Can you pronounce topics, please.
Negative 7 is equal to 5 plus x2 over 2 times 2 times 2. Negative 14 is equal to 5 plus x2 minus 5 minus 5. Negative 19 is equal to x2, more x2 is equal to negative. Okay? Y for them is equal to y1 plus y2 over 2. Y for them is 4. Y1 is negative 10 plus y2. 2, 2. 8 is equal to negative 10 plus y2. 10. 18 plus y2. Three coordinates are 19, comma 10. Okay? Alright, attached you'll see another assignment with just a few problems to practice. Make sure that you get this when we come back, because we're not going to talk about this formally in class. We're going to have a couple questions, but that's it. Otherwise, have a good weekend.